Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Straightforward Therapeutics. I'm your host, Gary Duke. We've been talking about relationship for about the last 10 sessions, and this is our last session on this subject. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that it's been beneficial. And I wanted to leave you with some tips, or what I wrote down the makings of a good relationship. As I said previously in every single video, relationship is the most important thing on the planet. Your relationship with God is primary, and your relationship with your family and other people around you is right there with that. That's what Jesus said. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so you do have to love yourself. It's hard to love somebody else if you can't love you. And but you have value because Jesus Christ died for you. That is the thing that makes you most valuable on the planet. And so I want to talk to you real quickly about some things that I wrote down here. This is what I consider to be the makings of a good relationship. And if you're in a relationship that you're struggling with, I would encourage you, not just because I'm a counselor, but counseling is a great intervention. For two people to be able to sit together in a room in a safe environment with somebody who can give insight and be able to slowly work through some of the issues that are really problematic, that if you were to sit down with your spouse or your teenager by yourself, likely you might end up in an argument or something, or it might be somewhat contentious. But you can sit in a room with someone else who's trained to do this, and they can help you to work through a lot of those issues. So I would encourage you, not to just settle for less. And I think that's even on here. The first one is time and effort. If you're going to have a good relationship, it's going to take time and it's going to take some effort. And you know what? We have a lot of things in this world that draw our attention away and take up our time. I mean, I'm 67 years, I am 68 years old, and I am probably more busy right now than I've ever been in my life. And it just seems like, there's always something. But we should always make time for relationship, and it does take effort. Yes, texting is okay. We do connect through social media, etc. But there's nothing like face-to-face contact and actually spending time with someone you care about if you want that relationship to grow. Another thing is, as I mentioned a while ago, unwillingness to settle for less than what God intended, especially in your family relationships. Don't settle for less. Know that God intends your relationship to be quality. Oftentimes we buy into the lie and the idea that this is as good as it's going to get, and that there's really nothing we can do about it. That's not true. There is always ways to improve the relationship that you're in. And if two people are willing to work together, and even if just one person is willing to work on their issues, things can get better. And as a counselor, I've done a lot of marriage counseling, etc. And I'll tell you, it's very frustrating when you come together with a couple and one of the spouses is really wanting to work on the relationship, and the other one's like, you know what, I'm done. The only reason why I'm here is because she wanted me to come. I'm just jumping through a hoop is all I'm doing. I can tell you, this may sound harsh, but as a counselor, I'm ready to be done with that right now. Because, if you're not wanting to change, you're not going to change. And one person can only do so much, but one person can do something. And a lot of times that one person is really the key element to really that relationship getting better. And so a lot of times it does weigh on more than one, on one person more than another. Another one is humility. You know what? The humility is not a fruit of the Spirit. We think of the fruit of the Spirit like, something like God's just going to come along and hang something on us like a Christmas tree ornament. Oh, Gary needs a little humility. I'm going to give it to him. That's not the way it works. Jesus said to practice humility. In order to practice humility, you've got to put somebody else above yourself. And you got to give deference to someone else. And so, you can begin to practice humility And a lot of times, practicing that a discipline of silence where you don't always have to have the last word or you don't have to give your advice. That's the one I have to work on a lot because, obviously, okay. Okay, courage to be assertive. Courage to be assertive. What do I mean by that? Assertive communication is one of the greatest tools that you can develop in your life, regardless of what arena you're in. Whether it's a family situation, with a friend, on your job, as an employer, as an employee. I love the definition of assertiveness that I think is best is the ability to express your convictions with respect for the other person. We all feel strongly about certain things, and it's okay to express our convictions about various things, but we have to do it with respect for the other individual, and really to be able to be assertive and to communicate, hey, this is how I feel, but I do respect the way you look at this, or I respect you as an individual. That is very important. But it takes courage sometimes to have those hard conversations. And, my youngest daughter, she went to counseling a couple of years ago. And one of the things that really was impressed on her was the need to be able to, have those hard conversations that maybe you might otherwise avoid. And I appreciate that in her because me and her's had a couple of hard conversations. And I'd rather her tell me, how she feels and me know what's on her heart so that I can work on changing and making a difference in that area than for her to just stuff it and make me feel like that I'm okay when I'm not. More prayer, less provocation. More prayer, less provocation. That's a great one. Okay. Some things you just need to pray about. I was listening to someone recently and they were talking about prayer, and they said, does prayer, if God knows everything, if he's all powerful, if he's omniscient, does prayer really matter? I mean, isn't God going to do what he's going to do even without prayer? The answer is no, he's not. Prayer is essential. And so like when you pray for people, things happen, and if you don't pray, things won't happen. And so, yes, do pray. Absolutely. Less provocation, more prayer. Don't provoke somebody. A lot of times you just need to pray about it. Appreciation of diversity. Being aware that everybody's different. There's been many times in my life where I wish everybody was just like me. I wish everybody thought like me. I wish everybody did exactly what I did, because it would seem to me that life would be a whole lot easier, especially when I'm driving down the highway. But, the bottom line is that God created us all different. We think different. We're all unique. There's not two people that are exactly the same. And that is the beauty of it all. I'm out here on my deck. Behind me, you see a lot of trees. I've got 40 acres of woods. And, if I go out and look in those woods, I can guarantee you that every one of those trees are different. There might be a 1,000 black oak trees out there, but every one of them is different to a certain extent. And God made them like that for a reason. And, if God will make a tree to be not identical to another tree, there's a reason for that, because there's beauty in diversity. And so like when we start thinking about the things in somebody else's life that, we don't love, or let me restate that. The things that we don't see in our own life, and that we think maybe doesn't have a lot of purpose, recognize the fact it does have purpose. And diversity is great. Appreciate the differences and embrace them. Realistic expectations. That's a great one. If you're in a relationship, you need to have realistic expectations. And don't just assume that somebody in your that you're in relationship with is going to automatically know what you want or think like you think. They're not. And so, you hear the story about, and this happens a lot, the guy, his wife often fixes lasagna on Tuesday night, and she makes the best lasagna in the world. And so he's coming home from work on a Tuesday evening. It's been a hard day, and he's thinking to himself, man, I can't wait to get home and get some of that lasagna that my wonderful wife makes for me. And then you walk in, and you don't realize that her day has been filled with chaos, and that she has been running to and fro trying to get everything done. And she thought to herself, I make lasagna every Tuesday night, and it's a lot of trouble, and I don't mind doing it, but today I think we're just going to have ham and cheese sandwiches. Wow, here we go. Those realistic expectations where you think everything should be just like you want it to be every single time, you got to roll with the flow. And be aware of the fact that not everything works out exactly like you want it to work out. Selflessness. Not everything requires a response. Okay, now here's a big one, especially if you're dealing with teenagers. Okay, I raised 2 girls, and they are amazing women of God. I love them with all my heart, and they are probably the two of the 3 most quality women I know. And so, but yet at the same time, teenage girls are going to be teenage girls. And you know what? At times when a 14 or 15-year-old teenager says something, it doesn't always make a lot of sense. And you think to yourself, that was stupid, or that really was disrespectful, or whatever. Now, there's times when we need to respond, when there's a reason to do so. But so many of those times, it really doesn't require a response. Just be aware of the fact that, hey, that's just the way teenagers think and talk at times. Let it go in one ear and out the other. And there won't be a problem. I'm not saying lay down. I'm saying use wisdom. Not everything requires a response. Just let it go. Move on with your life. And, a lot of times that works out just very well, because it creates less conflict. And a lot of that is pride-based, when we feel like we have to be able to be the one who's, got the word in. We want to play the power card or whatever it might be. Sometimes selflessness is a lot better than self-focused. And so think about that. Another one, if you're in a little situation that can be conflictual, using I statements. I know this is something that we're all probably aware of, but when you use I statements, I feel statements, you are much less likely to start a conflict. Doesn't mean that the person is not called into accountability. So, for example, if your child says something, right, that could possibly cause a conflict if you were to just respond to it and react to it in a negative way and start an argument. But if you looked at that child and said, daughter, when you say that, it makes me feel small, or it makes me feel disrespected, or it makes me feel unloved, well, yeah, that's going to embarrass her. But at the same time, it's not going to be something that's going to create a conflict. What it does is it creates a scenario where the words that came out of that child's mouth is placed back in their lap. Now then, they have to decide whether or not they really, what are they going to do with those words? Their goal in saying what they said probably was not to make you feel unloved or disrespected or small. Their goal was probably to express their opinion about something. But when they understand that those words cause that, then they have to think about that. Do I want my dad or my mom to feel like that they're unloved or disrespected? And so when you use those I feel statements, basically you're taking those words that are just spoken by someone else and you place it back in their lap, and they have to ask the question to themselves, what am I going to do with that? Is that really something that I want to continue doing? So that's a great thought. Journaling your thoughts before you decide to express them. A lot of times I have situations that occur with me that bother me, and I will journal about it. I usually sleep on it first, and then I get up in the morning and I journal about it. And a lot of times I decide that this is really not something worth really pursuing, and that it's something that maybe just rubbed me the wrong way because of my human nature or whatever, and that it helps me to see the other person's point of view. And a lot of times expressing those emotions and those feelings in your journal is a lot less risky than actually saying that to the person. And so that's a great one. Last one, the very last one, is professional assistance when needed. Okay? I'm a counselor, and I can tell you that counseling has a great role to play in people's lives at times. And so if you feel like that you know, things are not going well and that there is intervention that could be done, if your relationship, and I believe every relationship is worth salvaging if it's done right. Now, if you're in a toxic, bad relationship that is abusive, you know, you probably need to get away from it. You know, I would never recommend anybody staying in a relationship where they are unsafe physically, or if they're being mentally and emotionally abused on a regular basis. You know, you can work on a relationship from afar. Doesn't mean you got to get a divorce, but maybe you need to separate yourself from this person until that person decides that they genuinely want to change, and then you can make some good decisions. Go to counseling even if the other person won't, because like I said previously, you know what, if you change, a lot of times that changes the situation, or it will change how you view the situation. And so we're finishing up this series on relationship today. I hope these have been good. I have really enjoyed doing these, and I really believe that if you will go back over these and listen to them more than once, progress will be made. And remember, guys, we're shooting for progress, not perfection. There is no perfect relationship except God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, okay? But we can have a great relationship if we try. And so the next video, we're going to be starting a new series that I am very excited about. I'll tell you about it next time. God bless you guys. Goodbye.